Okay, without further ado, I want to welcome to the stage, he's the head of design for Stink Studios, and I'm a massive, massive fan of Stink Studios, who just get better and better and better over the years. He's going to talk to us about his personal journey through change and I'm ready. No, really. And how embracing change has been a driving force in his career. So he's the head of Stink Studios. He's going to talk to us about his journey through embracing change and how that has affected his career. Please welcome to our stage, Viv Greywoode, everybody.
Good. That's the most important thing. Yeah, thank you, Laura, for inviting me. I love being here. I've actually done a talk in this very auditorium about 2 years ago at Off Festival, some of you may know. So yeah, it feels like home. It feels like I've been here before. Well, I have been here before. Right, let's get on with it. Very big picture of me, which was good. Now, how do we move forward? Right, that's my title. Adaptability is a superpower, a journey in design leadership. I should have said, instead of A, it's my journey. It's different for different people, but I'm going to try and tell you some bits about what's happened to me along the way. First and foremost, hello. Hello, guys. I am Viv Greywoode. I'm head of design at Stink Studios in London. You can tell by my accent. I'm not from London, but my accent is very English. That's me, another big photo of me, snapped mid-conversation. I think it captures me perfectly. For those that know me, know that I can chat, so let's just leave it at that. First, we're into adaptability as a strength. Agents of Change for me was all about, when Laura asked me about it, it was all about, for me, thinking about change and what that means to me, but then also how you flip it and be adaptable. And it's all about action and reaction for me, and that's basically what I'm going to go into. There's a lot of words on this, so apologies. For me, adaptability and just change drives innovation. It drives everything around us. You can tell from the governments and what's going on, but especially our industry, it kind of is in constant flux. The economy, social climate, all of that sort of stuff. Obviously with that, money changes, tech changes, trends come in. Seems very obvious, but it's kind of here to stay, if you guys don't know. That's the T. It's here to stay. So, I'm all about embracing that and going, right, that's our starting point. How do we go? Come here. How do we wrestle with you? How do we dance? And yeah, that's the main thing, and that's all we're trying to do is basically stay relevant as well. With the change, it's also, because it's constantly changing, you have to stay relevant, and people want to see new things, and you want to keep going. So, how do I kind of do that? Well, it stands to reason, designers, creatives, studios, they need to pivot all the time. It's constantly this dance about pivoting and figuring out what's coming your way and then slipping that and doing something else. So it's essential to survival. We've seen from all like the big news things going on in the last year alone, that's, yeah, like from Google, letting people go, Facebook, all of that sort of stuff. It's here. So we just need to kind of keep moving. So now I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into my adaptive nature, what makes me tick, and my career progression. Please indulge me. Hopefully it's not boring, but we can chat later if it is. I'm happy to chat about it a bit more if you want. Also, I need to talk about my company. I come from Stink Studios because when I joined them 4.5 years ago, reading through their brand guidelines and then also their manifesto, one of their pillars is adaptability. And I was like, ooh, kind of like that. So I'll talk a bit about that later. But more onto me. Embracing change without even realizing it. That's my sus eyes. That's me going, things are changing. How do I move forward? So this is how I started. I started at Leicester Uni. doing maths and computer science, believe it or not. Age 18, I went there, and I was doing maths and computer science. And again, this is the first curveball, was like, I was doing it, and I was just like, I'm not really enjoying this. It showed. I basically fell in love with cocktail bartending, and I was also running a bar at the same time. And I was in lectures and in seminars, and I was getting calls from delivery people going, can you open up so that we can deliver you your stock? And I was just like, I'm in a seminar talking about maths and equations. I was just like, I'm in the wrong place. And it was just like, it just started to kind of seep through me that, this kind of wasn't for me. And so I did the hardest thing I could do, and that was leave. But it was the best decision I've ever made. I went home to a place just outside Oxford, and I did my foundation. For those that don't know, especially in design or just in creativity, you go and do a foundation for a year. And in that year, you do everything. And what I did at that time was focus on me. And it was the best thing I did. So selfish, but I felt like at that point, I kind of had to. I had a dilemma, I had to make some change, and it started with me, no one else. So I went home, best year, like I said, focused on me. I did everything. I drew, I sketched, I painted, I took photography, I spoke, I did everything. Screen printed as well. And out of that, I figured out, actually, I really like this thing called design. So within a calendar year, academic calendar year, I left the uni in Leicester and went back to another one in Bournemouth. It had a new graphic design building, but also a new graphic design program. And so I was like, I want to go and see about that. This time, no messing around, I was so focused. I went in and I was very militant, and I say militant in the way that I was like, there was nothing else. I kind of had to go and see this thing called design and figure it out and figure out where I fitted in. And yeah, there was no messing around, and I loved it. Also, I actually worked in a bar when I was down there, but there was none of this. That's anecdotal. So after that, like most do, go to London, do internships. And yeah, I did a few, and there was this one that actually stuck for a company that no longer exists called Capsule 01, and they were in Shoreditch Square, Hoxton Square, and small little agency in a basement. But they did really cool stuff for like DJs and music, and they also did some weird stuff. I say weird, but it was just like, it didn't really fit with the other stuff they did. They were in this music world and doing DJs and artists, and then they were also doing flash banners. I'm not sure who can remember. I'm probably dating myself now, but those that can remember doing flash banners, so a little bit of animation. So I was doing a lot of that as well, and that was amazing. But that was like, I was supposed to already be there for 3 months. Did really well. They were like, can you stay for 6? So I was like, cool. It was paid, so I was like, lucky. But during that time, I was still like, I've got 3 brothers, so I was staying on their couches, was like, no fixed abode, bit of a hobo, but loved it. Loved enjoying and giving myself to what I kind of studied. Then I quickly realized that I had to move on and actually grow up and get a job. And so I joined a company called VML, some of you may know. It was at that time called Good Technology. And yeah, end of my couch surfing days. But I worked on some amazing brands. Sorry to talk brands, but I think for me, to understand me, you kind of need to understand a bit of brands. But worked on Xbox, worked on Microsoft, obviously, because they own Xbox. And the Premier League, I'm a massive football fan. So working on a Premier League was just like, what is this thing? I need to get involved with it. And then quite quickly, well, I say quite quickly, after a year and a half, I realized I'd kind of hit a ceiling. Like when you look around and everyone else is leaving and you can't learn from anyone, and there's a lot of other people, there's not enough work and not enough work, and there's loads of creators and loads of designers. You're like, actually, how do I fit in here? And so I decided, enough. I've got to go and do something else, but I need to go and see some other agencies. So I moved to another one called EHS4D, which is called Hellier now. I was working on a lot of FMCG stuff. It was kind of a weird move for me, but I kind of just needed to go see. I needed to go see about something else. So I did. I was only there for 3 months, but it felt like a really informative time. And the penny obviously already started to drop, but it fully dropped then. It was just like, actually, you need to go and work on brands, things that you just love. that's what you need to do. That's where your love comes into it. That's how you change, and that's how you give yourself to it. You need to work on things you do. So I actually had a housemate at the time, old housemate at uni. He messaged me, and he was at AKQA, and he was just like, oh, there's a job going. And I was like, okay, cool. He was just like, it's on Nike. And I was like, okay, tell me more. And he was just like, do you want to come in and talk? And I was like, yes, I definitely do. So I ended up going there, ended up getting the job. I worked on the innovation team within AKQA, and it was amazing. And that team there's different verticals within Nike. I'm not sure, some of you may have worked on it before, but it's a behemoth. But it's one of those things where there's running, there's football, there's basketball, there's all that sort of stuff. But as the innovation team, you skirt along the top, and you kind of go into every brief and try and push them forward from an innovation point of view, from a tech point of view, for whatever's cool, so you kind of work as this bespoke team, and I loved it, because obviously I was working in, what I did was change, was innovation, was moving things forward, and that was kind of where I kind of was just like, oh, and I actually get to work on brands that I love. But I was doing things like coming up with new .coms, I was working on a training app for them. I was working on a game, an Xbox game, a companion, a training companion, a running companion. It was amazing. And I was just like, yeah, and it was across the board. It wasn't just digital work. It was out of home. It was everything. So I was just like very lucky. And then to top it all off, one of the last projects I got was an LED basketball court in China. Some of you may have known it for a couple of years ago, but it was the first of its kind where you can change the court. You've probably seen it a couple of years ago. They did one in America, but we did the first one in China. That was a pinnacle for me. 5.5 years at AKQA, and I was just like, right, what do I do next? Then they came with one other project, which was mad as well, where it was for basketball. It was 7 European countries in 7 days. Go. I was just like, okay, cool. So we had to capture, for each person that came in, we had to capture a reel of them playing and then give it back to them within 24 hours. So we were kind of constantly doing, and so I was the art director on that. And it was amazing. I really loved it. So I've spoken a lot about AKQA, so let's move on. Then, that's an agency, and then I went into my first client-side role. And I think it's good that I can talk about both, agency and client-side, and this is one of them. Head, some of you may know, they make rackets, they make skis. The battle I got there was ridiculous. It was just like, what are you talking about? We're number 1 and number 2 in the world on both sides, racket sports and winter sports. All you need to do is take a photo, put it on something, job done. What are you talking about? And I was like, a little bit more than that. But anyway, the output was that was the challenge. But actually, during my time at AKQA, what I started to realize, and why one of the big reasons I left was the work was amazing. I worked on amazing things. But actually, what I'm more interested in is the other side, is the other stuff. It's the softer skills, the stuff that you don't go to college for. It's the people. It's how do you elevate yourself, but also elevate the people around you. And I think that was the thing that kind of started the penny again dropped for me. And I was like, okay, I need to change here because, yes, I can design. I'm a designer. I'm pretty good. I thought I was pretty good. And now it's like, okay, there's this other side. So when I went to head, I was hire number 3, and I had to build a team from scratch. It was everything from motion, copy, 3D. And at that point, you kind of have to know a little bit about all of them. So I got that side of what I needed and that itch. I was there for 2.5 years. It was tough, but like I said, it was good for me because it was all about personal growth. It was all about change. It was all about how do I change who I am now to kind of be a bit more, how do I drive a team? Then I went to my other place, and after 2.5 years, I went to another in-house agency, but it's kind of not. It's Apple's agency called Media Arts Lab. Some of you may know it. Went there. I kind of felt like I had too much power at head. With all this power comes much more, like too much responsibility. I kind of felt like I was at head. I was able to come up with an idea in the morning, and then it was out in the world at lunchtime. I was like, that's mad. There's no one to stop me. So I kind of needed to go somewhere else and figure out, actually, if there's process involved, and how do you kind of do that, and more about community and more about collaboration, which is another big thing in this industry. So I kind of went there, and that was good. Apple is a machine. There's a lot going on. Everything comes from Cupertino, which obviously some of you may know, in terms of creative, and so it's all cut downs. And so when it gets to you in EMEA or in London, there's not much creative play. But again, I was there for something else. I was there for the other side. But I was also like, actually, I kind of want to go back and do something cool. So towards the end of that, I was thinking about leaving, and then COVID happened. Boom. I was like, sweet. COVID. But when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? And that's kind of what I did. When COVID hit and we all moved home and we were working from home, one of my friends was actually marrying a girl from America, moving to New York, and he had the role at Stink. He had the design director role, and he was just like, I'm leaving. I've put you forward. I was like, sweet. I love how that happens, where I don't even have to actively go. People are just like, put me forward. So I was like, okay, cool. Cool. And it was one of those things that just took on a new life. I spoke to Stink on a Wednesday. The Friday, in my inbox, I had full package, full contract, everything. And I was like, okay, this is meant to be. It has to happen. And so that's where I am. I'm there now. And this is a good segue, because this is my journey, but then I end on Stink, and it's good to kind of talk about Stink now. Yeah, they thrive on we thrive on flexibility and adaptability. Like I said, it's within our ethos, who we are. I'm going to show you some work. I need to apologize to you all, because we do have a new show reel, but the higher-ups wouldn't let me show it today, so boo to them. But it will be out on social very, very soon, so please, please, please connect, and you'll see it in the next couple of weeks. But here's the old one. No sound. No. Right, can I go back? Let me go back. We have some volume, please.
I've been playing at Carnival since 1989.
Yo, it's your boy AJ Tracy. Things can get a little bit hectic round here. Is that all you got, yeah?
Yes, that's a giant pizza. Yep.
Let's go, boy!
When you listen to the sounds from the stars, they all have their own voice.
Okay.
The Olympics is the Olympics, you know?
So, Stink Studios. Yeah. There's some good stuff in there. But this is one of the things that's in our brand. Change isn't just the water, it is the water. And that's what we've kind of been governed by. You can see from the work that you've just seen, although it's very quick and choppy, but there are so many different things. Like, we don't just do one thing, we do multiple things. We're a bunch of creatives, designers, motion designers that are generalists. We try and get involved in most things, and I think that's why it keeps us kind of moving forward. So yeah, a bit about Stink. Started off as a production house in the 2000s. Yeah, we worked directly with clients, so clients would come to agencies, would come to us and go, actually, this is, how do you extend this from a digital point of view? We've evolved with time, but everything has changed basically for us. Even the name, we were digital, Stink Digital, and now we're Stink Studios. We've been Stink Studios for 5 years, but we're internet people is how we talk about ourselves. We are very much internet people. As technology grows, so have we, and so have we matured. And I think that's part of, like I was talking about, the adaptability and being able to kind of zig when everyone's zagging and be comfortable in being uncomfortable. I think that's the main thing about us. And then, yeah, as our clients continue to change, so should we. We should kind of build stories for them that kind of evolve with time. And that's an advantage. It has to be an advantage. So yeah, and it's in our DNA. It's always the thing that we kind of come back to is like, how do we do things a little bit differently? And how do we adapt when our clients adapt? So that's Stink. That's them done. Now back to me. How do I foster adaptability in my day-to-day? I say day-to-day, but it's just that I kind of try and live by this. This is kind of who I am and kind of what I do. The saying, as some of you may know, is adapt or die, but I like this. I love to adapt and fly. It's kind of where the interest is for me. It's where I kind of always aim to be in that weird, like, unknowing, like, until you kind of start putting pen to paper and kind of start to do something. My main aim, and one of my main aims is like setting out intention when you start to do work or when you start a project. And the way I approach this, and this is all about, like I said, it's all about me, is I want to create work, and we want to create work that people want to spend time with. And if that's your intention, then how do you go about doing that? And how do you go about doing that not just for yourself, but for your team? So I kind of started to think about it from a point of, for my team, and kind of how do I go, okay, if I'm not able to do that, and I'm at a level where I'm a bit too far away, how do I communicate that? And how do I get that across? So intention is really important, and so that's kind of why at the beginning of projects, I'm always there early with them. I'm mood boarding, I'm talking to them, I'm having impromptu catch-ups, I'm getting excited about the projects with them. The thing is about designers, as most people know, and I normally just deal with designers, is if they're not interested, then it shows. I mean, if you're not talking, if you're not excited by stuff, then it kind of shows. So it's all about trying to engage them and be as interested as them, jump in on it, and be really collaborative. And I think that's the really important thing for me when it comes to this. And I also over-communicate. I can't stop talking about projects, and I think it's really good, because then towards the end, when things are starting to get a bit more sorted, then I can kind of just sit in the cut and go, cool, everyone okay? But especially that ignition point is something that's really important, and intention is something that really is good to set out. My second one is staying close to the work. This is hard. Lara had that scale of 1 to 8. As you start to get towards 8, you become further and further away from the work. It's the nature of the business. That's the tension, and it's always going to be there. So for me, as a designer at heart, I kind of am in all the meetings and expected to do some of the work. And it's just like, this doesn't really work. But what I do, in a little tip, if you guys kind of don't know, and it's really simple, I block out my diary. I give myself the time, and I'm kind to myself, and I say, actually, every day, that hour, I'm doing that. And I have to do it. And just give myself the time to kind of look at the work. Luckily now we have Figma and collaborative programs that you're able to kind of get in and kind of look at stuff. So luckily now it's a lot easier. But I do. I give myself the time to do it. So that's how I stay close to the work. And I'm able to kind of talk to my team and be relevant as well. Not just sitting there in meetings going, I don't like that. It's actually be relevant and give really good feedback. Next one, building a strong team. I spoke about this last night when we were having dinner. But I believe this, hire people better than you, end of. Hire people that are just better. From a freelancer to someone in your team that you're hiring, better than you. Someone that you can see something in that you're like, you do stuff that I can't do, and I bloody love that. So just like really give people their flowers and really give them the chance to kind of, and create the space for that to happen, for them to grow. I also ask a thing when I'm interviewing people, I started to do it. I didn't do it for Rafa. Sorry, Rafa's in the building, but I did do it for him. But I also asked the question, how do you like to be managed? I call it what it is. I'm a manager at this point in time, so I have to kind of be real with them and go, how do you like to be managed? And then people are like, oh, I've never really thought about it that way. Because it's not one size fits all. I am who I am. I talk the way I talk. I interact the way I interact. But if someone's like, I don't like that, or this is how I want to do it, then I can always have that in mind. And it's something that I really try and do when I'm building a team, and also when I'm trying to build a diverse team. I think that's super important. Diversity has been a buzzword for ages, and it's something that's always around, but I think it's diversity of thought is the first. Someone that thinks differently, that kind of does stuff differently than you. Then it's obviously experiences, backgrounds, where have they been, where are they from? Really important. And then it's how do you figure out what their side hustles are, and how you go, actually, bring that in. Like, how do we become a bit more about people? And I think that's what I was talking to Lara about yesterday, was about this has to be, we're in a industry, a design industry or creative industry, but this has to be bigger than the job for me. Like, you spend a lot of your time at work, as we all know. So you have to get to know people. And invest time in them. Like, really, it's super important. Because once you can do that, then you have multiple things. But the main thing for me is when push comes to shove and you have that deadline, that you're like, you have a shorthand. So you're able to go, right, this is what we do. And it's like, we're moving. And you've built that over time. It's hard and it takes time, but it's something that I always try and do. Next one, craft. Craft is super important. And I'm going to talk about this with a football analogy, so please humour me. There was a footballer, some of you may know, some of you may not, called Andy Cole. He used to play for Manchester United. He used to be a striker. He was in an interview and he said, how do you feel about losing? Like, you lost that game. How do you cope with it? And he said something that I was just like, I'm stealing that. And so here it is. He basically said, was like, we didn't lose. We never lose. We just ran out of time. And I think that's brilliant. Such a good mentality to have. Like, from a craft point of view, until they're taking that paper away from you, you're working on it. You're crafting it. You're moving it around. You're kind of iterating and keep working at it until there's no more time. And that's the mentality that I kind of have, and that's kind of how I do the job. I think Rafa, who's here, he can say the same for me. We're always like, how do we mess it up a little bit? How do we, like, in the nth minute, everyone's tired and think the job's done, and we're like, can I just talk to you about that little thing? Can we just do a little bit more? And I think that's really important. Never stop until the time, there's no more time. So yeah, that's the other thing. And then wash-ups. Washing up at the end of projects, when the dust settles, when you're like, I've finally done that. There's still work to be done. I do this thing where I basically do some notes for every project I have on my desktop. I say I'm quite organized, I try to be, but for every project, I have a folder, and within that folder, I have a couple of notes. What I could have done better, how the team worked, what problems we overcame, knowledge that I kind of want to keep. Is there something that we had from them that we've finally been given by the client that we can kind of put somewhere else? Basics, but just like keep that. So when I look through my desktop and I look in my folders, at the top there's always this wash up. And I think it's really good because then you can kind of go through and go, oh, okay, cool, there's learnings from everything. And I think that's it for me. So there are my principles. And then the last one, which isn't really a last one for me, is thinking beyond the now. One of the things that I've always tried to do is try and leave places better than I met them. So even now, like, I'm staying in a hotel here, and I'm leaving to come here in the morning, and I'm tidying up the room so that when I come back in, it's how I like it. It's that type of thing. So it's not just tidying, but it's leave it better. We all take our jobs quite seriously, but you kind of need to provide the right environment, not just for yourself, but for people. When you start to get towards that C-suite level or whatever it is, it's kind of you have to create the environment for people to kind of thrive and be able to progress. And I think that's kind of how I've always kind of looked at it. So try and leave places better than you met them. And there's a few ways of doing that. One of the ways, currently at Stink, what we're trying to do is set up a internship program. It's kind of my idea. I'm going to take it. It's called Incas. It's going to be launching next year, but it's going to be cross-discipline. I don't care what you're doing, whether you want to be production, whether you want to be strategy, whether you're design. Usually you just get these like designs and creative stuff, but it has to be cross-disciplinary. There's a way of doing stuff that Stink has been doing for a while that we're able to we're kind of creating a syllabus so that people, like when you guys, the interns come in, there's a set way of doing things depending on what they want to focus on. And it kind of helps for the future, right? It's teaching the Stink way, but it's also helping people. So they'll come in and they'll work on projects, live projects. They'll work on dummy projects. They'll work on competition projects. They'll go on shoots. They'll do all of the things. But then one thing we also make sure we do is we carve out time to help them on their own project, whether it's a project they did at uni or whatnot, how we can help them elevate. I think it has to be about that. It has to be about helping people. Whether they get a job at the end of it is a different matter, but it's kind of like, how do we kind of move people forward? And again, leave place better than you met them. How do you kind of add that legacy? And yeah, it's governed by our pillars, and one of them obviously being adaptability. I think I'm pretty much at the end of my talk. So, one sec. Last, final thoughts, and these are really quick. These are the few that I kind of wanted to talk to you about. Embrace change. Sounds obvious, but embrace it. It's not going anywhere, so you need to kind of do it and get involved with it and wrangle it. Commit to craft. Try and stay close to it, no matter what craft it is, whether it's design or whether it's words or whether it's pictures. Whatever you do, stay close to it. Keep moving. Keep it iterating until they pull that paper away from you. Then curate a strong team. It's all about that. Diverse and strong team. People that get it, that think, and that can kind of help. I say design team, but you could substitute any team in that for me. And then, last, leave places better than you left it. Do good, be good. Thank you.
Viv, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I love